Well, hello, friends. Welcome. This evening, we're discussing Article 3 of the Constitution, the judicial process. So I think I have nice looking reading glasses, huh? Let me see. I can get rid of that. But we're going to be talking about the judicial process. I still owe somebody an explanation. We were talking about DC and Puerto Rico becoming states, and I said there was a process, a non-standard process, and in one state, and I can't think whether it was Tennessee or Kentucky, was admitted in a non-standard process. In my research, I found out that there was the Northwest Territories Act of, I believe it was 1818, if I'm not mistaken. But there were some states added that were in a way that was not in accordance with the Constitution, and that was because of the Northwest Territories Act. And I think those were like Ohio, Indiana, Illinois. It may have been Kentucky and Tennessee. But anyhow, there were some that did not follow the constitutional method for becoming a state. So I still owe you an answer on that. I'm going to continue to research it. I haven't forgotten it. But tonight we're going to be talking about Article 3, judicial. So remember now in Article 2, in Article 1, the Constitution gives Congress the authority to set up all inferior courts. So an inferior court is any court that is subordinate to the Supreme Court. So the Supreme Court set up by the Constitution, and originally it had 7 members. Then in the 1930s, FDR wanted to pass some things, and they said, no, you can't do that. That's unconstitutional. So he had Senate pass 2 more seats, which gave him a majority. Then he was able to do his Great New Deal and a lot of other things that he wanted done by having those 2 seats. That's called packing the court. And that's what's being talked about doing as long as we have the presidency and the Senate under the control of this president. So, that's why holding the Senate is extremely important to either party, because they approve all the ambassadors, they approve the courts. The Senate's where the power is in that sense, in all these formalities, process formalities, whereas the House is important for budget purposes, for impeachment purposes, and things like that. So, understanding all those nuances is kind of important. Let's see where we are. Hello, My Prepper Journey, South Florida, DCL. Stewart's Prepping. Let me see. Little Lone Prepper just joined us. I was with her over on David Lynn Prepper Principles channel just a couple minutes ago. Listen to Grandma, welcome. They wasn't that productive, but it was pretty good. We went to a new Mexican restaurant. Actually, it's not a new Mexican restaurant. It's new for us. It's one of the better acclaimed here in the county, and we haven't been up there to be at it in quite a while. Or we haven't been there, period. And we've been to the other restaurant that the owners own, but not this one, not the Mexican restaurant. And because of that cough thing that we had happen in 2020, a lot of our favorite Mexican restaurants were reduced their menus and had only carry out, and really went downhill. So, and they haven't come back yet. So we decided we try this one. It's pretty good. This is more. I'm from the border, so I grew up in El Paso, so I'm more used to border Mexican food than I am to Tex-Mex. And of course, Arizona, the Mexican food in Arizona is different than it is in California, than it is in New Mexico, than it is in Texas. And we have a rule here in Texas, and that is that nobody is ever supposed to eat any Mexican food north of the Red River, because you're not going to get anything that's even close to authentic. So if it's north of the Red River, chances are it's not authentic, and it's been Yankeeized. Listen to Grandma. Hello, welcome. Yep. That's what we were just talking about. Cats and Prepping. Hello, welcome. Smashing Machine from down in Australia. Welcome. Good to see you, mate. Holly Ivans, welcome to you as well. So let's talk about this third article of the Constitution, is judicial powers. And before we do that, I just want to remind everybody that tomorrow night we're going to be doing 2 more chapters in this marvelous book nuclear war survival skills. And so tomorrow night we are doing shelter sanitation and preventive medicine and surviving without doctors. I'm going to tell you, I will put a link. The link, as a matter of fact, is going to be in the show notes already. I've already edited that. I don't know what's going on. I downloaded a new program, an update for my MacBook Pro, and I can't load. I couldn't do my thumbnails in Canva today. I couldn't upload any pictures to Canva. I couldn't upload to Canva thumbnails to StreamYard so that I could give you a thumbnail. I've got to do some research on what I did wrong, because now that I've downloaded that update, just everything's kind of gone to heck. I was trying to create a Canva for this, a thumbnail for this one too. But this is in the show notes tonight already. I've got it ready for as soon as it goes live. The repeat. This is the report to Congress on if we have an EMP or a CME, how 90% of the population is going to die and the rationale behind it. The first chapter alone, it's going to take us maybe a week or two to discuss. But I have two options for you in the show notes so that you can start reading it. We can have a good conversation. This will be starting about, I think we're going to start the 17th or somewhere around in there in December, 19th, maybe. The 19th of December, we're starting this book. So I gave you two options. One, you can buy the hardcover like this. It's not that thick. Remember, this is a report to Congress. And then the other one is a free PDF. So you can get it in a free form so everybody can read it before we actually start talking about it. Okay, Article 3, Section 1. The judicial power of the United States shall be vested in one Supreme Court and in such inferior courts as Congress may from time to time ordain and establish. The judges both of the Supreme and inferior courts shall hold their offices during good behavior and shall at stated times receive for their services a compensation which shall not be diminished during their continuance of office. So you've seen that they've got a couple things. I've seen that there's a petition in, what's her name? Margaret Taylor Greene. She wants to reduce the Secretary of the Department of Homeland Security, Alexander Mayorkas. She wants to reduce his pay to $1 a year. She's also introduced a bill to reduce Karine Jean-Pierre, the spokesperson, press secretary for the president, to reduce her salary to $1 a year. We got all these things that you can't do that with a judge. Once a judge is appointed, you can never reduce their salary. You can increase their salary, but you can never reduce it. You can't penalize them either. Section 2, the judicial power shall extend to all cases in law and equity arising under the Constitution, the laws of the United States, and treaties made or which shall be made under their authority, to all cases affecting ambassadors, public ministers, and councils, to all cases of admiralty and maritime jurisdiction, and to controversies to which the United States shall be a party, to controversies between two or more states, between a state and citizens of another state, between citizens of different states, between citizens of the same state claiming lands under grant of different states, and between a state or a citizen thereof and foreign states, citizens, or subjects. In all cases affecting ambassadors, other public ministers, and councils, and those in which a state shall be the party, the Supreme Court shall have original jurisdiction. That means you can't. So if I've got something going on and I want to sue Oklahoma, okay, and I'm a citizen of Texas. So because I'm a citizen of Texas and I'm suing Oklahoma, that has to originate. My original case has to go before the Supreme Court. It can't go anywhere else. So I can't sue in Texas court, and then Oklahoma says, we don't accept your judgment. We're going to take it to the Supreme Court. Because of the fact that it is a citizen of one state against the state of another state, it has original jurisdiction in the Supreme Court. You don't see that happening. Very, very seldom. In all the other cases before mentioned, the Supreme Court shall have appellate jurisdiction both as to law and fact, with such exceptions and under such regulations as the Congress shall make. The trial of all crimes, except in cases of impeachment, shall be by jury, and such trials shall be held in the state where the said crime shall have been committed. But when not committed within any state, the trial shall be at such a place or places as the Congress may by law have directed. Okay, so impeachment. Remember that impeachment is basically a two-step process. Okay, so first you have the impeachment, which is basically the same thing, and this is under Article 1. I believe I'm sorry, it's under Article 2. But the first part of the impeachment process is basically an indictment done by the House of Representatives. Then they turn that indictment or that grand jury billing over to the Senate, who conducts the trial. Now, if it is a federal official, president especially, then if it is the president, then the Supreme Court Chief Justice presides over the Senate for that trial. Any other official, vice president and lower than the president pro tempore of the Senate, can be the presiding official, except one exception, right? There always has to be another exception. Remember, the president pro tempore of the Senate is the vice president. So he can't sit as president of the Senate in a trial against himself. So if the impeachment is against the vice president, then the vice president cannot sit as the head of the jury, the trial at the Supreme Court against himself. Okay. Section 3. Now, and this is a word that we use very frequently, that we need to learn what it really means and how we really use it. Section 3. Treason against the United States shall consist only in levying war against them, that's any state, or the states combined, or in adhering to their enemies, giving them aid and comfort. No person shall be convicted of treason unless on the testimony of two witnesses to the same overt act or on confession in open court. The Congress shall have the power to declare the punishment of treason, but no attainder of treason shall work corruption of blood or forfeitures except during the life of the person attainted. So basically, you're convicted of treason. You can be fined all of your properties, okay? And you can be sentenced to death and executed. But they have to confiscate your properties before you die. If they execute you before they confiscate your properties, they can't go back and take your properties after the fact. Okay, so that's basically what that means. So, probably one of the shortest, well, definitely the shortest of the three chambers of the Congress is this one. Now, I think we have to take into consideration a Supreme Court decision that happened later in the 1800s. I believe it's 1812. Let me look it up here real quick, and I'll give you that one as well. It's called Marbury v. Madison. So what happened was, it's a legal case in which on February 24th, 1803, the U.S. Supreme Court first declared an act of Congress unconstitutional, thus establishing the doctrine of judicial review. The court's opinion, written by Chief Justice Marshall, is considered one of the foundations of U.S. constitutional law. So in the weeks before Thomas Jefferson's inauguration as president in 1801, the lame duck Federalist Congress created 16 new circuit judgeships in the Judiciary Act of 1801 and an unspecified number of new judgeships in the Organic Act, which Adams proceeded to fill with Federalists in an effort to preserve his party's control of the judiciary and to frustrate the legislative agenda of Jefferson and his Democratic Republican Party. Because he was among the last of those appointments, so-called midnight appointments, William Marbury, a Federalist Party leader from Maryland, did not receive his new commission before Jefferson became president. So once Jefferson was in office, he directed his Secretary of State, James Madison, to withhold the commission, and Marbury petitioned the Supreme Court to issue a writ of mandamus to compel Madison to deliver the warrant, the commission. Marbury and his lawyer, former Attorney General Charles Lee, argued that signing and sealing the commission completed the transaction, and that delivery only constituted a formality. But formality or not, without the actual piece of parchment, Marbury could not enter into the duties of office. Despite Jefferson's hostility, the court agreed to hear the case in February 1803. Some scholars have questioned whether Marshall should have removed himself from the case because of his prior service as Adams Secretary of State. We've seen that same thing happen here we have a justice on the Supreme Court, and her vote actually was the deciding vote, if you want to look at it that way, for Obamacare. And yet she had been President Obama's attorney, arguing for Obamacare before she was appointed to the Supreme Court. So she should have recused herself. She didn't, and we now have Obamacare. Same thing happened here. So basically what Marbury v. Madison said is that unless the Constitution is amended, okay, that the Supreme Court has the authority to interpret the Constitution, and if they feel that the intent or the actions of any act done by Congress is contrary to the intent and letter of the Constitution, they can basically deny or say that that's an unconstitutional thing. And so that's the importance of Marbury v. Madison. Is it implemented judicial review of all legislative and executive order actions, and it can countermand a bill. And so that's originally why Obamacare was taken to the Supreme Court, was it was being challenged as to its legitimacy and constitutionality. Was it constitutional to raise taxes on individuals in order to fund it? And that was question number one. Question number two was because it was a taxation, it taxed people in order to get revenue in to afford Obamacare, and it originated as Senate Bill 2. And remember, Article 1 says that all bills that raise revenue have to originate in the House. Therefore, it was unconstitutional because it originated in the Senate. And so, you had all these questions. And so that's the reason it was taken to the Supreme Court in the first place. And then we changed a little bit of the wording. And instead of revenue taxation, it was changed to a fee. And therefore, it was deemed constitutional. So, it's crazy. Okay, let me catch. I'm using the website for Canva. Thank you, Holly. Thank you for that reminder. I do appreciate y'all doing that. It gives us a little bit more visibility. I can understand that. I can appreciate that. So Monday nights, we talk about U.S. government and Civics 101. And Tuesday nights, we get back into prepping. And Thursday nights, the last Thursday of each month, is a fiction book club review. And this month, we're doing book 11 of A. American's The Survivalist series. And it's Engineering Home. Fantastic book. Be here for the last Thursday of the month. That's going to be, I believe it's the 30th of this month. But tonight we're talking about, every Monday night we do U.S. government and civics. So this is our fourth week on the Constitution. Let me see where I am. Hello, Second Star Survival. Welcome. And it looks like I scrolled past one here. Nope, that was creative redundancy again. And anyone else would get fired for not doing their job. I guess diversity works, Little Lone Pepper. Yeah, that's true. That is so true. And Second Star Survival. Okay, so basically that's pretty much it for Article 3 and judicial review. Now then, remember, so we have 7 justices originally. It expanded to 9, which is where we are now. They want to take it to 15. I think we're taking it down a rabbit hole that's going to be. Hello, Scott Hummer. Welcome. I think if we take it to 15, that's just going to be too much, way too much. Now, there are a couple, when we get into Article 6, which is how to amend the Constitution, I believe it's Article 6. I'm sorry, Article 5. When we get into Article 5 on how to amend the Constitution, there's a lot of people seeking a convention of states, which is a constitutional convention, so that we can amend the Constitution because we know Congress isn't going to do it. There's a lot of constitutional amendments that they're proposing, balanced budget, popular vote to raise the salaries of the anybody in the government. Now, I will tell you that we did have an amendment. I think it's the 26th Amendment, where Congress can vote itself a pay raise, but it cannot take effect until the next Congress, after the Congress where they adopt that pay raise. Let me check here real quick. 26 raised or lowered the voting age to 18. 27, no law varying the compensation for the services of the senators and representatives shall take effect until an election of them shall have intervened. So they can't give themselves a same term pay raise. They have to wait until the next term for that pay raise to go into effect. But what they do want to do is they want to put in term limits. Now, remember, we do have term limits for the president, no more than 2 elected terms. And so they would like to get that down to probably somewhere in the vicinity of 12 years, 6 terms for representatives and 2 terms for senators. I don't know. But I do know that they want to try to get some term limits on. I don't think, if we take a look at what these people were doing at the time that they got into, became involved in writing the Constitution and in politics, they weren't professional politicians. I don't think at any time we really, until the 20th century, we weren't really that set up for a professional political process. I think it was going to be citizen representation. So you go in, you represent your state as a senator, or you represent the people as a representative for a limited amount of time. You go back to your constituency, and then it's all over. Kind of like the Davy Crockett method. Davy Crockett only served 1 term in his as a representative, and so that's that would not be bad to have people with very little time as far as staying in office. So cats and prepping. The answer to your question is yes. In the House, they can only give a pay raise every 2 years, and of course in the Senate, it would be by the every 2 years as well, by the what they call classes of senators. So 1/3 of the Senate is replaced every 2 years. So that would be an intervening election, and that would be when the next pay raise could go into effect, but it's only every 2 years. Oh, Phylloxera, one of my absolute favorite books. Absolutely. And that was, what was the pig's name? The Big Pig. And he was talking to the horse who became glue at the end of the book, there in the middle of the book. Yeah. Oh, forget their names. Well, here's the thing, Stray Kitten. Remember that it takes 2/3 majority to amend the Constitution. So rhinos can't do it because they're less than 1%. The Republicans can't do it because they're less than 50%. Democrats can't do it because they're less than 50%. The Squad can't do it because they're less than 1%. So basically, anytime we have an amendment to the Constitution, you have to have 2/3 majority to approve it, to ratify it. And then it also has to be ratified by the states. So, anything that we do as far as a ratification, Napoleon, thank you, Princess Kicking Butt. Now, what was the horse's name? Oh gosh, I'm trying to pull stuff out of my. Remember that when I read that in high school, 1984 was a far future thing. As a matter of fact, I got married in 1984. Wow. So, but anyhow, it takes 2/3 majority. So no one party is going to have the ability to um, impose something ultra drastic without the consent of at least a portion of the other party. Let's just put it that way. Um, so, oh wow, I did not know that. I did not know yours have been the odd years. Creative redundancy. Uh, this one's going to be an interesting one. I hope we make it that far. They had there was an attack by Yemen with 2 ballistic missiles against a destroyer in right off of Yemen in the Gulf of Arabia. And so it's going to be interesting what happens there. Is that an act of war? Remember, Yemen is where we also had the USS Cole was bombed. So there's a lot of activity happening off Yemen, and the Houthi in Yemen are Iranian backed. We've had a lot of stuff going on in Iran, explosions near some of their nuclear compounds. So this is heating up over there. So it'll be interesting what happens. But Boxer, thank you, Boxer the horse. Yeah, gosh. So yeah, what a great book, 1984. Now there is another book that is I'm putting right up there next with 1984 as far as quality of a book that it just scares the living daylights out of me because there's so much good analogy in it, and that's one by Blaine Pardoe, and the name of the book is Blue Dawn. So if you read, if you can get a hold of it, Blue Dawn. Let me see. I've got it here in my Amazon list. Amazon list. Where are you? Word. Amazon list. I don't have it up. Open recent and Amazon affiliate links. It'll take a second for this to bring up, but Blue Dawn by Blaine Pardoe, what a great book. One of the things I found that there are some really phenomenal authors out there writing fantastic books. Of course, I started off with William Forstchen and his 1 second after, 1 minute after, whatever it was, just totally got me engrossed. As a matter of fact, I blame me spending pretty close to $40,000 on him because it's because of him that Blue Dawn. I don't have Blue Dawn in my list, so I haven't set that up yet where I can sell that on my Amazon account. But anyhow, Blue Dawn by Blaine Pardoe, and just a fantastic book. I forget what I was saying before that. Yeah, 1984, I was 32 years old when I got married. And I was a sergeant first class teaching Russian voice intercept operator course at Goodfellow Air Force Base in San Angelo, Texas. And but anyhow, I know what I was saying. I was talking about William Forstchen, and he got me into, and he caused me to spend about $30,000 getting whole house solar because we have a brittle type 1 diabetic here in the house, and the main character's daughter dies in that 1 second after because there was no way to keep the insulin cold. And I said, oh, that's not going to happen here. So I started on a rampage of buying portable solar power packs and whole house solar and battery backup and everything else. Well, after him, I found another author, and he has a channel here called Integrative Preparedness, and that's Stephen C. Smith, and he has the Stonemont series, and so that's pretty much an EMP that takes place in east central Kansas, just west of Kansas City in the Olathe area, around the Topeka area, places like that. He gets into the panhandle of Texas. He does get into northern Arkansas, Missouri. He even goes as far east as North Carolina. But fantastic author, great book, lots of great prepping ideas that are just phenomenal to add to your system. Another one, and then right after him, I interviewed him. And then as I was interviewing him, I was asked to be on Toolman Tim's program. Toolman Tim and I started talking. He said, "Have you read any of the American books?" And I said, "No, I haven't." He says, "You need to talk to Chris Weatherman, get him on your channel, interview him, and read his books." So I said, "Okay." I bought his books, read 3 of them before I interviewed him here on the channel. So then after interviewing him and reading his books, just unbelievably great books. And then we're doing book 11 this coming Thursday, Engineering Home. And there's some great learning in it. Then he and I were talking, and he told me to look up Franklin Horton. Horton. Norton. Franklin, what's your last name? Got his book right here somewhere. Franklin Horton. So I started reading Franklin Horton's books. I ordered, 2 of them, and one of my order was called the Mad Mick. Well, I went to Franklin Horton's website and it says, "Don't read Mad Mick until you've read Locker 9 series, because Mad Mick is introduced in book 2 of the Locker 9 series." So I started reading the Locker 9 series, finished that. Helen's now reading that. That got me into the Mad Mick series. I read it. Now we are doing the Borrowed World series, and this is going to be our book for end of December. So we're doing Franklin Horton. So that's another outstanding author. So we're up to book 6 with Stephen Smith, and we've done 6. We're waiting on 7 to come out. We've done all Franklin Horton's. No, we've done all up to date on American's books. Good evening, David. And we're catching up on book number 3 of the Franklin Horton series at the end last Thursday in December. So, and then I went to a thing, and Franklin Horton says, who you need to really read? You need to really read Blaine Pardoe. So I read Blaine Pardoe's book, and that's one I've been telling you about. That's another 1984. That's just, gosh, what a great book. Phenomenal, fantastic, superior, outstanding. All those adjectives and adjectives and adverbs, I should say, just top of the line writing. So I am very, very happy with all the authors I've been reading here recently. So those are just phenomenal. Strongly recommend them. Okay. Any questions? What questions do you have about the Supreme Court? That's and we'll tie that up with the Supreme Court, and then we can open it up to general prepping questions, because we have an Australian, we have a couple Canadians, and so I don't think they're that interested in the U.S. Supreme Court this evening. So, but next weekend we're going to discuss, I believe, Articles 4 and 5. We may even do more than that. We may do 4, 5, and 6. Let me check here how long they are. Article 4 has 4 sections. Article 5 has 1 section. And we may just finish up the Constitution next week, do the last Articles 4, 5, 6, and 4, 5, 6, and 7. We can finish up the Constitution with those 4 articles next week, and that'll bring us up to date on the Constitution. Then we'll get into some of the things that started changing as the U.S. started westward expansion. Of course, the issue of slavery in the United States and its history, and then a lot of taxation rules and things like that, Federalists versus non-Federalists, and a whole bunch of discussion about the different types of governments that we see and promulgated as a result of that. Phylloxerus. Okay. So if I have time, no, I can do that right now. So I would say number one, start with the Locker 9 series. Okay. So the Locker 9 series is going to be basically a father has prepared a bug out locker at a rental facility, one of those locker rental facilities. So Locker 9 is this bay that he has rented for her, and it has all of her bug out equipment in it, communications, weapons, freeze-dried meals, all that kinds of stuff, everything she needs when EMP happens. And so she and her best friend go to that locker, pick up the equipment. She has a Jeep. They put it in the Jeep, and they take off. There's 4 books in that series on how they get from college back home. So it's basically, how do you bug out effectively? All kinds of great suggestions on bugging out. In book 2 of that series, the Mad Mick is introduced. Now, the Mad Mick is kind of the enforcer type of a character. So he is an operative, and as people experience assaults by bad people, Mad Mick goes out and takes care of them. He, his daughter, and their adopted, I want to call him a son, go out and take care of all the bad characters. So this is basically, so the Mad Mick series is basically going to be an independent series, but the characters introduced in book 2 of Locker 9 series. And but you can read that independently. I say you get a little bit more if you read Locker 9 first and then do Mad Mick. Then the third series, just a minute. I have these all over on the coffee table for Helen to read, and so I have them in order for her to read. So this is Locker 9. Mad Mick is that one. Masters of Mayhem is book 2 in Mad Mick. Locker 9 is the beginning of this is the beginning. This is the one you start with. Then you have the Borrowed World series. That's what I want. That's what I'm looking for. This is another totally independent series. So the Borrowed World series starts off. It's 1, 2, 3, 4. I believe there's 6 characters that start off, and they all work for the Virginia Mental Retardation. They go to Roanoke for a meeting. EMP happens while they're there. Then they're trying to get back home. And so, it's talking about how they get back home on limited capabilities as they cross the state of Virginia. And they go through the Appalachian Mountains and everything else, and the importance of having some friends along the way and different ways that you do things. So a lot of fantastic preparedness, bug out type, get home bag type stuff in what I say the name of that series was in the Borrowed World series. And then the 4th series that I'm reading right now is that is the Borrowed World series. So that's the one we're talking about here. So this is where in the Borrowed World they're making it back home towards Virginia. This is the Get Home series. So you got the Bug Out series, the Enforcer series, and then now we're in the Get Home series. He's got a couple other series in there as well. I haven't started yet, so I can't recommend those yet. But if they're anything like the other books that he has, then oh wow. So Little and Prepper, the free version, when we do, after I finish this and it goes public, in the description, if you scroll down, I have the schedule of all the books, and I believe it's in December, January. I have both the Amazon link if you want to buy the hardbound book, And I have the link for the PDF if you'd rather do it. Download the PDF and read it for free. So both of those are going to be in the show notes. They're already in the show notes. Just once we shut this down and it goes back, just go right back in immediately and go through the description, and you'll find it there. Claude Ortega, welcome. NC Farmer, welcome. Let me see who else. Yeah, Princess Kicking Butt. So the 3 series that I've read so far are the Locker 9 series, Mad Mick, and Borrowed World. All 3 of those are independent, although Mad Mick is better if you at least get the first 2 books of Locker 9 under your belt before you read it, because they do, they intertwine. Okay. Diana 2, do I keep all my books? Absolutely. I couldn't sell them anyway, because you know me, I've got all my learnings. So when I read a book, I tab it, I highlight it. I have little 5x8 cards that I keep inside the book, and this one here. So I have my little notes, what pages certain things happen on, descriptions. For example, one of the key things that I learned in Locker 9 was the father told the daughter that when she is leaving the university and coming home, as she passes various signs on the road, go to the back of that sign and with a Sharpie, write down, her initials, the date and time that she was there, so that he can backtrack her if necessary, if anything happens, and he'll be able to try to find her that way, knowing how far she had gotten on her trip. So, there's all kinds of little tips in these books like you would not believe. So, yes, I keep all my books. Oh, Setting Star Survival, you're fine. You're fine. Thank you. Thank you, Claude. Yeah, and tonight's just a little bit short. I should have planned for 2 articles, but I asked people to read them ahead of time, so I'm not going to try to put the kibitz on anybody by going further than what I already would have asked them to have read. So, Well, I have a hard time too. Of course, I was in the military, and so when you're in the military, you have weight restrictions, and you move at least every 3 years. So let me see. I was in basic training, Fort Leonard Wood, was there for 12 weeks. Then from basic training, I went to DLI for language school for a year. Then to Goodfellow Air Force Base for basic signals intelligence school, and that was 12 weeks. Then to NSA, and then from NSA back to language school again for another year, to Goodfellow Air Force Base for another 16-week course. From there to Fort Riley, Kansas for 3 years, back to DLI for another year of Russian. From there, back over to Germany for 3 years. From there, back to Goodfellow as an instructor for 3 years. And then from instructor school back over to a remote intercept site on the east-west German border for 1 year. From there down to Augsburg again for another year. And then from Augsburg to Stuttgart for 2 years. And then from Stuttgart to Fort Huachuca, Arizona for 3 years. So you can see I moved several times. Well, a couple things happen. If you're a prepper and you're trying to get a stash of food, when we first got married in 1984, I was leaving Goodfellow Air Force Base to go to Germany to that remote intercept site, and we got married. And I had to give away all kinds of food. So we had relatives that got all kinds of flour and lentils and pinto beans and everything else that I had stored up in 5-gallon buckets back in 1984. But Helen also found out the importance of a bug out bag, because at that time we were still in the Cold War. And so all military family members had to have what they called a NEO bag. And a NEO was non-combatant evacuation orders, NEO. And so they had to have basically a bug out bag with all their medical records and their shot records and their passport and money and food and clothing and medicine and everything else, because if the commies came across the border, then they had to pick up their bug out bag and go to a collection point and be flown back to the United States if they were capable of doing that. So, my wife knew about bug out bags in 1984 when we first got married. But anyhow, so I can tell you that I have lost more books than I have currently with me, a lot more than I currently have with me. Absolutely. I just went back and rebought. I had the complete series of Robert Heinlein. Stranger in a Strange Land has got to be one of the best books ever written, and so I'm reacquiring those. All of my George Orwell books, Animal Farm, 1984, and all those others. And rereading those. And so yeah, there's quite a bit. There are some favorites I'll never give up, but like 101 World's Best Poems. I've done a couple of poetic readings. There is a poetry reading tab in my thing here. Okay, let me catch up with some of these other comments here. Isn't that the truth? Absolutely. And you can bend twigs, you can bend grass. There's all kinds of good things you can do for letting people know where you are and where you're going and things like that. And one of the other things is the key word there is woods, because remember, I'm in Central Texas. So mesquite and cedar are the two most popular ones here. We get some live oak and some scrub oak and some Spanish oak, but not very much. A little bit east of here, you start getting into pine land, and that's pretty. They have quite a bit of timber, but I would say we're in a transition area here where I am on the I-35 corridor. And then as you go west from here, let's say you go a little bit west from here, you get into pecan country, and everything is pecans. San Saba County is the pecan capital of the world. They produce more pecans there than anywhere else. And then just west of San Saba County, of course, is Tom Green County, which is where Goodville Air Force Base is, where I was there for 4 years. And anything over 3 feet tall in that area is considered a tree. So mesquite is considered a tree. And I'm originally from El Paso, so a yucca, when it had its long spiral up the center, was considered a tree. But so trees are all relevant to where you are in the world, right? Yeah. Oh, good friend of mine, Pete, the roaming prepper, just put out a 1-minute video, and gosh, it takes me back. But in El Paso, they have a winding road. It starts out called Rim Road, and then once it gets to the bottom of Mount Franklin, to this one point in Mount Franklin, I should say, on the side of it, it changes from Rim Road to Scenic Road. The name changes, and you go up, and then it goes along the side of the mountain. Then it has an outcropping, an overlook, and it looks out over the eastern and southern portion of El Paso, northeast, eastern, southern portion, Fort Bliss, El Paso International Airport. You can very clearly see the Rio Grande and the demarcation between U.S. homes and Chihuahua, Ciudad Juarez homes on the south side. So quite a vast transition between the two. But Pete just put out a 1-minute video, short on that. So go to the Roaming Prepper, and look for his video overlooking the city of El Paso from that outcropping on Mount Franklin in the Franklin Mountains. Oh, wow. We go down to San Antonio every once in a while. Last time we were down there, we went down to Fort Sam, to the JAG, to do our wills. So we are equal distance. So it takes us within minutes, equal distance between going down to Fort Sam or to Randolph. as it is for us to go from here up to Fort Hood. So, just pretty much exactly in between the two. Uh, all right. Okay. So tomorrow night, gosh, we got some really good stuff we're going to be talking about tomorrow night. One of my favorite things, and I don't think there's too many channels that really talk about this, and that is sanitation. I think if I can say, if you want to know how important sanitation is, take a look at Hurricane Katrina and what happened there in New Orleans when the toilets started backing up there in the dome. I forget which dome that is, Superdome or whatever. But anyhow, when the toilet started backing up, then all of a sudden you had all kinds of disease that was breaking out. I've got sanitation taken care of here, but I don't know about my next door neighbors. I don't know about the people down the street. How much of that is going to be coming up. So when we talk sanitation, we're talking about waste removal, whether that be human bodily waste, whether it be carcasses, human or non-human, animal, the waste that you're going to be producing as far as tin cans, scrap foods, all those kinds of things. So we've got to take all that into consideration as we talk about sanitation. And then where there is no doctor is basically the next portion of that. So we're going to have a pretty good discussion tomorrow night. And so I would encourage you to also check out, because of tomorrow night, check out Jace and Contingency Medical, Jace Medical and Contingency Medical. Make sure you have an ample supply of antibiotics. If your neighbors don't have their waste management taken care of in a post-apocalyptic world, that can be something that would be really, really scary. Second Star Survivals in the Hill Country. It's beautiful out there, especially the Highland Lakes. And so, yeah, I like to go to Llano, to go to Cooper's for barbecue. We have family in San Angelo, then we have family up north in Brownwood and Comanche and Round Rock, Georgetown. So we everybody gets together in Llano so we can go to Cooper's for lunch. Best grilled pork chop in the U.S., I swear. And right now I'm looking for the best chicken fried steak, and I'm also looking for the best chili relleno. So right now for the best chicken fried steak, I got to tell you, Storms in Burnett is pretty doggone good. Pretty doggone good. So, okay. A cave would be a fantastic place if it's deep enough. Remember, that's they used a cave basically in Jericho. Remember, it was a cave that they had been done, a mine basically is what it was, and then they blew the entrance so that they could keep the radioactive fallout from coming in. But yeah, a cave would be fantastic. Any kind of a cavern or a cave would be fantastic. Okay, so with that, I think you just join us tomorrow night. Next week, we'll get back on subject about U.S. government and Civics 101. So for those of you who are Canadian and or Australian and not that interested in U.S. government, I don't blame you if you don't want to be here on Monday evenings. That's quite all right. But Tuesdays and Thursdays. Tuesdays, then the last Thursday of the month, which when we do most of our prepping stuff. I did not get a video out today for a prepping skill. I did not get a video out today for a recipe. I do have one that I want to do right here, and that's what I'm going to be doing is my ham, onion, potato bechamel casserole. I got to come up with a better name for it, but I'll have a video link and everything for it. So I'll be putting that out. I'll get everything set up for the contents and everything, and then I'll be putting that out here very soon. So let's close this out. Oh, no, don't go to Flying J. That's a truck stop, isn't it? Flying J's. Thank you, Creative Redundancy. I greatly appreciate it. We really, really appreciate you. Okay. The book of Numbers, chapter 6, verses 24, 25, 26. The Lord bless you and keep you. The Lord let his face shine upon you and be gracious to you. The Lord look upon you kindly, and most importantly, give you peace. Or as we used to say before Vatican II, Dona nobis pacem, grant us peace. So please remember that we're all in this together so we can come out the other side together. Please be kind, polite, and respectful to each other, because togetherness is the key, and that's how we'll rebuild a better society once this one is taken down. Thanks, everybody, for being here. Tomorrow night, we're going to do those 2 chapters from Nuclear War Survival Skills. Take care. Bye-bye.